Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start off by commending the administration's leadership on the price cap. A successful cap, however, requires agreement from a broad group of countries and is a delicate balancing act. So, Secretary Rosenberg, where are we at in terms of securing the necessary buy-in and support to make the price cap work? Is there buy-in from other major economies beyond the G7?
Thank you, Senator, for the question and the opportunity to speak to this. In negotiating and crafting the price cap policy, we've worked very closely with partners in the G7, and in this instance, that includes the EU, so all of EU nations as well. That was enshrined and articulated in the G7 ministerial statement from several weeks ago with a commitment to implement this strategy. So we're in a very strong place when it comes to coordination across this group. That's meaningful because a significant majority of services for the maritime transport of Russian oil are concentrated in these countries. We've also had the opportunity to speak with major purchasing economies that are not part of the G7, but that would be in a position, already have been, and will continue to be purchasers of Russian oil. And they understand the purpose of this policy, and we have significant common cause with them when it comes to their ability to purchase Russian oil at significantly decreased rates.
Let me ask you, how much of a concern is Russia's efforts to create alternative insurance mechanisms? And what are we doing to make those efforts ineffective?
Thank you, Senator. Russia does have insurance, maritime insurance, that it has used. It doesn't have enough insurance in order to support all Russian oil that it exports, which is one of the reasons why insurance provided by European countries has been important, and I think will continue to be important for purchasers of Russian oil. Furthermore, those purchasers of Russian oil know that to use VLCC tankers, some of the largest tankers, they are essentially required to use European insurance. So there's a powerful incentive for those purchasers to continue to access G7 insurance and other services for the purchase of Russian oil.
Well, India's importation of Russian oil has skyrocketed, helping it to maintain Russia's exports. How successful is our ongoing engagement with India on agreeing to adhere to a price cap? And can the price cap actually work if India and China are not part of the coalition of countries implementing it?
Thank you, Senator. It is the case that India has significantly increased its purchase of Russian oil. That is conceived of in this policy when it comes into force, and India continuing to purchase, including at a significant volume, can be entirely consistent with the price cap. What's key is that India is in the position to negotiate a lower price, a significantly lower price for the oil that it purchases. And to the latter question that you just asked, it's not essential that countries such as India or others in Southeast Asia, for example, that purchase, or East Asia, that purchase Russian oil, it's not essential that they formally join the price cap in order to be able to use that cap to leverage a very low cost of oil that will advance our purpose, driving down Russia's revenue and also keeping Russian oil on the market at depressed prices for security of supply.
That's a great point, but it's also a question. If China wants to help Russia, then it can purchase oil beyond the price cap, and it is a direct way of helping Russia at a critical time without being more directly involved in Ukraine. So at some point, we have to think about how these are not just any economies. These are major importing economies in terms of India and China, and how they act in this context is going to be critical as to how successful we are. And I look forward to see how we're going to deal with that. I get concerned about, I have been the author of more sanctions than I'd like to remember, and the challenge is, of course, enforcement and dealing with evasion. And so it's critical that the United States crack down on entities and nations that seek to evade and subvert Western sanctions. I'm particularly concerned about possible sanctions evasions by Turkish financial institutions through their use of Russia's domestic payment system, MIR. I was pleased to see that the U.S. just sanctioned the CEO of NSPK, which oversees Mir's operations. What further steps is the administration taking to close loopholes that allow Western sanctions to be undermined through the use of the Mir payment system?
Thank you, Senator. We're quite concerned about the potential for evasion for Russian sanctions broadly in any jurisdiction. And as you note, this is one jurisdiction that we've focused on. Our Deputy Secretary has made a specific effort in that regard. We're also interested in how existing financial connectivity that Russia has to the rest of the world, whether in the payment service you noted or others, whether those can be abused. We should think of any such connectivity as potentially vulnerable and appropriate for enhanced due diligence. We will continue to engage with Turkey to focus on that vulnerability.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Chairman, I have one final question, if I may. Sure. Thank you. Mr. Adams, we've seen a lot of high-profile yachts seized and whatnot, although I don't know how much it costs us to maintain it before we can get rid of it, so I don't know what the net effect of that is, but certainly to those who lost it, it's significant. The long-term success of a successful seizure effort will come down to coordination and information sharing at multiple levels across jurisdictions. What are some of the biggest obstacles to ensuring a robust effort to identify and seize privately held assets? And how's the U.S. aiding jurisdictions, other jurisdictions, to ensure that that takes place?
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate the concern behind that question. The biggest obstacle historically has been communication across borders and dealing with our international partners. In the wake of the February invasion, those obstacles have diminished greatly. There's been, in my experience, a significant uptick in the ability and the interest of international sharing, both in terms of law enforcement and intelligence. The key hurdle previously was a mismatch and a misalignment between the U.S. sanctions regime on the one hand and foreign partner sanctions regimes on the other. As the European Union, as our partners in the United Kingdom and elsewhere around the globe have come into alignment with our sanctions regime, it has greatly increased our ability to effect seizures, to effect requests for searches, to request arrests, et cetera. That, I think, will only continue as those regimes continue to come into alignment, and in particular as our partners in Europe and the United Kingdom continue to work on legislation of their own that will increase their own ability to proceed on civil asset forfeiture or an analogous proceeding.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.